The die is cast. So I spoke as I crossed the Rubicon. I am Julius Caesar, and I will tell you my story. Julius Caesar. My name has crossed the centuries, etched in stone and memory. But behind that name, there is a man, a destiny, an unending struggle for the greatness of Rome. I invite you to follow me, to listen to what I have to say about my life, my battles, my dreams, and my fights. Because I shaped my story, not just the flow of events. Here is my tale. I was born in 100 BC into a patrician family, noble indeed, but far from the most powerful. Rome then lived through turbulent times, political struggles, civil wars, boundless ambitions. My childhood was marked by the study of oratory and Roman values, courage, discipline, and devotion to the Republic. I quickly understood that to survive and exist in this city, only willpower, backed by intelligence, truly mattered. I started modestly, relying on my skills as an orator, my ease at convincing, and my ability to read men. Soon, I realized politics was a game of power, where caution and boldness intertwined. My first experiences were marked by fragile alliances and ever-growing challenges. But I kept a clear ambition, to see Rome united, strong, and myself at the helm of its fate. My youth was no barrier. On the contrary, it sometimes allowed me to be underestimated, an advantage I knew how to exploit. Thus began my rise, paved with trials and conquests. As I gained experience, I understood that words alone weren't enough. I needed allies, powerful men ready to stand by my side and share my vision. That's how the first triumvirate was born, a subtle alliance with Pompey and Crassus. 3 intertwined destinies, 3 forces combined to dominate Rome. Each had ambitions, each played their game, but together we could overturn the obstacles blocking our ascent. On the battlefield, I became a general. My campaigns in Gaul were not just conquests, they were an expression of my strategy and discipline. To conquer, yes, but above all to convince the Romans that I was the man for the job. Facing the Gallic tribes, fierce leaders like Vercingetorix, I deployed all my military intelligence, speed, mobility, surprise. These were my strengths to crush opposition. Every victory cemented my prestige, every success made my name grow in Rome's salons and Senate whispers. But I knew military power had to be matched by political power, and trust from the people, the legions, and the elites was essential to endure. Bit by bit, I shaped the man and the leader Rome seemed to demand, even as jealousy closed in around me. The path would be long, but I had no intention of yielding. Never. The Gallic War was perhaps the trial that defined my name and power. From 58 BC, Rome tasked me with subjugating those vast unknown lands, filled with fierce, independent peoples. Gaul wasn't a homogeneous mass, but a patchwork of tribes and cultures, often divided among themselves. I knew how to exploit that division with care, forging alliances when needed, striking hard when mistrust turned deadly. Vercingetorix remains my most famous opponent. A charismatic leader, he rallied the Gauls in a massive revolt, but his walls and fortresses couldn't stop the resolve of my legions. In the winter of 52 BC at Alesia, I fought one of the hardest and most decisive battles, facing forces superior in number. Discipline, tenacity, and strategy made the difference. Vercingetorix's surrender marked the symbolic end of Gallic resistance. Rome now extended its empire to the western edge, and I extended my power and prestige. But this conquest wasn't just a military victory. It was a demonstration of my ability to manage, organize, and integrate these lands into Roman order. It brought Rome wealth, land, and above all to me, the loyalty of the legions and the support of the Roman people. This war was also the prelude to other challenges, especially political jealousies in Rome, which soon pushed me to a decisive choice. The moment was solemn, heavy with extreme tension. In January 49 BC, I stood at the edge of the Rubicon, the small river separating my province in Gaul from the territory directly controlled by Rome. Crossing that river meant breaking the law, defying the Senate, and declaring war on the Republic itself. But I knew there was no turning back. With a handful of loyal soldiers, I made the decision that would change the course of history. The die is cast. Civil war broke out, pitting my forces against those of Pompey and his allies. It was a bitter conflict marked by decisive battles, betrayals, and shifting alliances. My determination, strategy, and the loyalty of my troops were ultimately my greatest assets. I marched on Rome, victorious, now holding unprecedented power. The Republic wavered beneath my steps, and I became the undisputed master. But this power, won in the heat of war, also carried the seeds of discord. I knew I had to stabilize Rome, reconcile its factions, and establish a new order, a task as perilous as the battles I had fought. Crossing the Rubicon was the first step of an extraordinary destiny, a bold gamble on the future of Rome and myself. After the Civil War, Rome was drained but still standing. The people demanded peace, stability, and an end to endless strife. As dictator, I took on the heavy responsibility of rebuilding the Republic my way. My reforms were broad and deep. I organized the calendar, giving Rome a more rational measure of time. The Julian calendar, a lasting mark of my rule. I also reformed laws and the Constitution, seeking to limit the excessive power of corrupt senators and to strengthen the rights of citizens, including Rome's humblest people. My social policy aimed to distribute land to veterans, encourage colonization, and ease internal tensions. I put the public finances in order, cleaning up the administration. Yet these changes met resistance. Some saw me as a tyrant, a man too ambitious, ready to break Rome's traditions and ancestral liberty. I knew the fragile balance between authority and respect for institutions was hard to maintain. But I believed Rome deserved a new breath, a strong power capable of securing its future. Caesar was no longer just a victorious general. I had become the living embodiment of power, with all its grandeur and shadows. My name echoed everywhere in Rome. The people cheered me, and my enemies could hardly deny my supremacy. Yet behind this glorious facade, I felt the growing undercurrent of threat. Jealousies, grudges, and plots took shape among those who feared my power. Some senators saw me as a tyrant, a man ready to devour the republic they had sworn to defend. Their fear slowly turned to hatred. I knew their whispers and schemes. But I still hoped to convince, to calm, to unite. I saw myself as Rome's savior, the guarantor of its future. I knew my work could not be complete without everyone's support, but absolute power also digs a deep isolation. Solitude becomes a companion, and vigilance a constant burden. These tensions foreshadowed the inevitable final confrontation. I held my head high, aware that history would judge my actions and that Rome's fate would turn. I did not ignore that betrayal could come from friends, that the end was near. On the Ides of March in 44 BC, what I feared happened. In the Senate's curia, surrounded by those I thought allies, the dagger of betrayal sank into my back. The Ides of March, that grim day when the freedom I thought I was defending turned against me. My murderers, Brutus and Cassius, saw me as a despot, a threat to Rome. But I remained convinced that my reforms, my vision, aimed at the Republic's salvation. Tu quoque mi fili, they cried in me, betrayed to the core. In that last breath, it was Rome's future that troubled me. This republic I had reshaped, shaken, but hoped to renew. My death caused chaos and sparked new civil wars. But it also opened the way for an empire that my heirs, like Augustus, would build. My name, engraved in history's marble, remains a symbol of power, ambition, and a pivotal era. I was a man of light and shadow, and perhaps my greatness lies in that duality. This account is not an apology, but a confession. I am Julius Caesar, and my story is the story of Rome, an unfinished dream, forever alive. Join history, like and subscribe.